So this is Erik Iverson with Tim Kitchell. We just finished the Las Vegas Roadshow for Barco, and we showed some of our image processing products. And one of the questions that came out of the class was dealing with aux panels. And it was one of the great features we demonstrated here, but we just wanted to give people maybe a little bit more detail about how the aux panels work, how you use them, and how we set them up. So I think Tim's going to give us a little demo here and also talk us through how this all works. So, Tim, first of all, why would we use an aux panel?
Well, basically why you use an aux panel is you want to remote control the source selection for an aux output. It could be a screen, it could be a downstage monitor, or some auxiliary feed that you want to have remote control for. So a couple options on the aux panels. In their basic form, they can basically control an aux cuts only type transitions.
So like my video engineer maybe would have an aux panel for looking at shading cameras?
Yeah.
Maybe my record guy?
Or a record guy could select feeds for ISO record, or a lighting director could look at different camera shots.
Okay.
Okay. So first thing you need to do if you want to set up the aux panels is you need to have auxes set up actually on your switcher. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a mixing aux with our W12 we have here in the room. So that W12 is plugged into one of our universal output cards down here. Now the first thing you want to do is you want to set up that aux with a format. And we've chosen the Barco Link 5994 because that'll send 1920 by 1200 at 60 refresh out to our projector on a single coax cable. So once we set that up, next thing we have to do is we have to take that aux and we have to map it to some sort of button. Auxes have to be mapped to buttons in order to have source selection. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to map it to the panel, and we're going to map it to button number 1.
Now, how did you do that? Okay, so you selected it here on the menu, but
right.
then what? You push map to aux panel. Show us on the panel what you actually selected to engage that.
I would actually select that physical button on the aux section at the top of the switcher. So the same thing I need to do here, I'm going to create a mixer out of this ULC output. So I go down to type and I change it into a mixer. That creates a preview for that particular aux output. Now same thing there, I need to assign it to a button in order to assign sources to it. So I highlight it here, press map aux to panel, and I reach down onto my console and press aux 2.
Now, I see there we got a couple different colors going there. What's that all about? I got amber and it looks like green?
Yeah, so the amber is referring to the program side of that mixing aux, and the green is representing the preview side of that mixing aux. And that corresponds to the colors that you see here in the aux menu.
Well, now that also kind of tracks with our preview program concept on the MEs as well, yeah?
Correct. So we keep the same color scheme for program and preview all the way through the switcher. So the next thing I do here, just for my own sake, is I would rename those auxes, because aux 8 is kind of deceiving because it's not actually assigned to aux 8 as a button. So I'm actually going to name that what it is, and I'm going to call it the W12 for the program side, and for the preview side, I'm going to name that W12 preview. So naming auxes helps you to find them later on when you're trying to assign those auxes to panels, or even if you're trying to map it to the multi-viewer. So now you have a program and a preview for that aux. So what you can do now is if you go to your aux panels, now the first thing you have to do with any of the aux panels is you have to discover them. Even though they're connected to the network with the system, they don't actually communicate right at first. Now, its current state, it has a fixed IP address that you can find out by pressing these two buttons together for about 5 seconds. And what happens is it'll actually list the IP address that's associated with that panel. So first, you go in here and press Discover Remote Panels, and it's going to go out there and find that IP address for that panel. Now, there is a built-in web app inside the panels that you can access by typing in the IP address of the panel into a web browser on your computer, and it gives you a built-in web page that allows you to change the IP address or change the name of the panel.
So if I actually had like different IP addresses show up on a show and all of them were the same IP address, we could go in and change them to be unique in the network.
Yes, in fact, you actually have to do that. Otherwise, they're all conflicting IP addresses and nothing would talk.
Gotcha.
So every panel has to have a unique IP.
And I can actually give it a name, like a location or something. So that could be stage left, stage right,
Could
stage
be
manager, something
shader,
like that.
lighting director, stage manager, whatever you want to put in that little space.
Now these panels, I understand that they have a little bit more functionality though than just auxes. What else can we do with them?
Well, if you look down here, you can assign several things. So the simplest thing you can do is assign an aux, and that means remote control of source selection. You can also assign custom buttons. So what you do is you have these custom lists that you can either assign memory recalls or keyer transitions, any kind of custom button setup that you need, you can map to a panel.
So I could, for instance, have one panel that's maybe the preview for my projector and another panel that's presets or something of that sort?
Something like that. Most likely, you're probably going to have one panel that's assigned to control preview side of a mixing aux, and another panel that's set up with memory recalls. So if you don't have to actually select multiple panels or multiple presets, or excuse me, previews, you can have a memory that recalls all those screens for you. So on this one, we're going to select an aux, and we're going to...
look at that. You got a name in there, don't you?
Yes, we do. That's how it makes it much easier to find. So first of all, we're going to map the program side of this aux to that panel. So when I assign it, what happens is the panel down here updates, and it's going to show us all the sources as they are laid out on the console in exact order. Now at the very end of the RCP, you're going to see an auto trans button. Now since we're assigned to the program side of this aux, as we select sources, over on the projector, we're actually live cutting to program on that aux.
And again, this projector is being fed by Barco link, right? So we've got native resolution, 1920 by 1200, 60p, so we are giving it a progressive signal. And we can cut all day long with that one remote panel.
Yep, and that's the simplest form. That could be your lighting director or shader's monitor. Now, the other option we have is we can assign that panel to the preview of that particular aux. And when you do that, the panel looks very much like it did in the other state, where it shows you all the sources. But now, what you're actually doing is selecting the next source that will go to that screen. So if I select, for instance, playback A, and then press auto trans, what will happen is on the screen, you'll actually see it dissolve from one to the other. I'm going to go back here to the original source, and now I'm pressing auto trans on the panel, and it's dissolving by aux.
So this is like having a Screen Pro built in.
Yes, it is. It's like having a whole different switcher controlling full screen outputs.
So let me get this straight. With the RCP, we not only have aux control, so we can dissolve from source to source. We can drive at Barco link over a single coax cable, no more fiber to worry about. But we can also then mix, just like we had Screen Pros happening, and we could also recall presets with these things.
Yes, you can.
So what do you need the console for?
Well, you still need the console for setup. All of the setup functions are on the console GUI. You could also use the console as your director's station. So you have one person cutting cameras here on the ME, and you have another operator controlling screens on the RCP panels.
Now, can I also do these transitions and stuff from the FSN 150 panel?
Yes, you can. Like I said, those are remote controls. Those remote controls actually remote everything from this aux section. So a user can actually do the same thing here, select the preview source, and then aux trans. Now there's two ways to do the aux transition. You can do it from the aux menu. There is an aux trans key here, and that will do the dissolve. A better way is to actually have the aux trans on your panel. And
from this aux menu, can I also make source selections here?
Yes, you can. You just highlight the aux, you select the source from your list of sources, or from any of your test patterns, backgrounds, or any of your program feeds.
So I can actually send the ME program, if I wanted to, straight to the projector.
Yep. All you have to do is select it from here, and there are direct access keys for the full ME, ME1, and for the program. And if you wanted to, you could map either ME2 to this button, or you can map ME2 to its own source button.
Now, how would I get program or ME1 or ME2 onto the panel? I noticed it only showed you the inputs. Is there a way to map that separately or define that in a custom sense? Or
Yes,
how
you
do we
can.
deal with that?
On our system, you actually have the ability under map buttons to create user-defined auxes. And under user-defined auxes, you can define what the buttons will be labeled or what sources will be assigned to that panel. So for instance, you only want to assign cameras to a shaders panel. You can do that. More importantly, to answer your question, you can actually map sources, and those sources can be other things such as ME1's preview, ME1's program, or clean feeds. So those could be things that can be sent out an aux and selected from here.
So I can then, as the screen switcher, I can actually have a different set of inputs available on my panel than what maybe the FSN operator that's doing cameras actually has mapped.
Exactly. You can have a different set of input mapping.
Excellent, excellent. And now you were saying that the console is required for setup and everything. Can I run the RCP direct in the FSN and not take the console?
No, you can't. RCPs do require a console in order to do the setup and the communication between the frame.
And how many RCPs can we use? It sounds like a very useful piece.
Well,
a lot.
Theoretically, you could do up to 30 panels. We give you spots for 30 panels on the interface.
And actually, that's a loaded question, Tim, because I actually saw us test 32 panels in the lab one day.
Yes. It's only limited by the IP address scheme, so we could put as many as we have room on the IP scheme for. We just limited to 30 here for software purposes.
Well, fantastic. Well, Tim, thank you very much for explaining the RCP and the usefulness of this. I can see a lot of definite useful places in the show environment where we can use this, and it expands the capabilities of our system.
You're very welcome.
For more information, contact us at www.barco.com or watch our YouTube videos.